Everyone in that parking lot thought it was just another ugly moment that would be forgotten by morning. A manager shouting, a woman crying, phones half raised, then lowered. What no one realized, what the manager would never forget, is that this moment would summon a reckoning on two wheels, carried by people who understood pain far better than he ever had. She thought the worst thing that could happen was losing her job. She was wrong. The grocery store sat at the edge of town, one of those places where fluorescent lights hummed louder than the conversations, and everyone pretended not to see each other. Maria Alvarez had worked there for 3 years. Early mornings, late nights, double shifts when others called in sick. She stocked shelves, smiled at customers, and saved every extra dollar for her son, Daniel, who needed physical therapy after a car accident that had taken Maria's husband 2 years earlier. On that afternoon, Maria was exhausted. Her hands trembled slightly as she scanned items at the register. She had been called into the manager's office earlier and warned, again, that her numbers were too slow. No mention of her working short-staffed. No acknowledgement of her staying late without pay. Just blame. When her shift ended, Maria headed to the parking lot, her mind already racing through dinner plans and bills. She didn't hear him coming at first. "Maria!" The voice cut through the air like a blade. She turned and saw Carl Bennett, the store manager, marching toward her. His face was red, his jaw tight. People slowed as they passed, sensing tension but not stopping. "You think you can just walk out?" Carl shouted. "I'm off the clock," Maria said quietly, clutching her purse. "We can talk tomorrow." "No, we'll talk now," he snapped. "You embarrass me in front of customers. Your register was a mess." "I followed procedure," she said, her voice shaking. "I always do." Carl stepped closer, too close. His finger jabbed the air inches from her face. "Don't lie to me." Maria took a step back. She felt the familiar knot of fear in her chest, the same fear she'd felt with doctors, with insurance agents, with anyone who had power over her life. "Please," she said, "I just want to go home." That word "please" did something ugly to Carl. His hand shot out and grabbed her arm, not hard enough to break skin, but hard enough to hurt, hard enough to humiliate. Gasps rippled through the parking lot. "Let go of me," Maria cried. Carl shoved her backward. She stumbled, fell against a car, and slid to the ground. Her purse spilled open. Someone screamed. Someone else laughed nervously. And most people did nothing. Carl stood over her, breathing hard. "Get up," he said. "Stop making a scene." Maria's eyes filled with tears, not just from pain, but from the crushing realization that this was happening in public. And still, she was alone. She didn't see the man across the street lower his phone. She didn't hear the low rumble starting somewhere far away. But Fair did. The first engine growl felt like thunder, slow, deliberate, and impossible to ignore. Across the road, at a rundown diner, a group of bikers had been finishing their late lunch. They were an unlikely family, men and women of different ages, backgrounds, scars, veterans, former addicts, blue-collar workers, all members of a riding club called Iron Haven, formed not for chaos but for protection. Jack Turner, the oldest among them, had seen too much in his life to ignore injustice. A former EMT, his hand still carried the memory of lives lost and saved. When he saw Carl shove Maria, something inside him went still. "That's enough," Jack said quietly. Chairs scraped back, helmets were grabbed, no shouting, no drama, just purpose. The engines roared to life, deep, rolling thunder that echoed across the parking lot. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads turned. Carl looked up just as 6 motorcycles rolled in and parked in a clean, deliberate line. The bikers dismounted slowly, their boots hitting the pavement like punctuation marks at the end of Carl's authority. Jack walked forward, calm as a man who had nothing to prove. "Step away from her." Carl scoffed. "This is none of your business." Jack looked down at Maria, still on the ground, her arm red, her dignity bruised. Then he looked back at Carl. The moment you laid hands on her, it became everyone's business. One of the bikers, a woman named Lena, a former social worker, knelt beside Maria. "You're safe," she said softly. "I've got you." Phones came out again, this time steady. Witnesses found their courage when they realized they weren't alone. Carl's voice wavered. "She's an employee. I was disciplining her." Jack stepped closer. "That's not discipline, that's assault." Police arrived minutes later, called by 3 different bystanders who suddenly remembered how to speak up. Security footage was reviewed. Statements were taken. Carl was escorted away in handcuffs, his power stripped in front of the same people he once intimidated. Maria sat in the back of an ambulance, wrapped in a blanket. Lena held her hand. Jack stood nearby, helmet under his arm. "I didn't think anyone would help," Maria whispered. Jack smiled gently. "Most people want to, they just forget they're allowed to." In the weeks that followed, the story spread. Charges were filed. The store fired Carl and implemented new protections for workers. Maria received legal support from a nonprofit Iron Haven partnered with. Donations poured in for Daniel's therapy. Maria found a new job, one where respect wasn't a favor but a rule. On a sunny Saturday months later, Maria stood outside the diner with Daniel, watching the bikers prepare to ride out. "You didn't just save me," she told Jack. "You reminded me I matter." Jack put on his helmet. "You always did." The engine started again, not in anger this time, but in promise. Because sometimes justice doesn't arrive quietly. Sometimes it comes roaring in, reminding the world that courage is contagious, dignity is worth defending, and no one, no matter how small they feel, has to stand alone. And that is a sound worth waiting for till the very end.